Hey trainers, Alakaham here with some more Pokemon video magic. The Ultra League is running this week, which is my favorite league, as any regular listeners know, and I built up a Pokemon that is new for me in the Ultra League, and that Pokemon is going to be Kommo-O. Kommo-O is a dragon fighting type. It's not especially bulky, but it's also not super squishy, so it's definitely usable. But the thing that makes Kommo-O so great is that it has a wonderful moveset with Dragon Tail, a really hard-hitting fast move that generates energy fairly quickly. Then we have Dragon Claw for the bait move and Close Combat as the sort of nuke move. So Kommo-O has access to some pretty good attacks there. In this first match, I came across a Giratina, and as you're going to see, we have a little bit of bulk because we can survive at least one super effective Dragon Claw, and our Dragon Tails are actually going to be doing lots and lots of damage. So I know that there are some other videos about Kommo-O out there. I hope that maybe if there are those of you who have the Pokemon around, you've maybe found a Jangmo-O but haven't committed to it yet, maybe this shows you a little bit more about what Kommo-O can do. And it is kind of difficult to build these things, but I definitely think it's worth it. So I think I've found 2 in the wild, and then I have hatched all of the others from eggs. And then, of course, you add in some rare candy. And in my case, I just evolved the first one that I found in the wild, and then it ended up being in a Master League range, and Kommo-O performs best in the Ultra League. So I had to find another one and build it up and add the second charge move, which is fairly expensive at 75,000 Stardust. So anyway, Kommo-O is not completely inaccessible because you can get it from 10k eggs, but it is also, takes some time and energy to actually build one for the game. Its biggest hardship is going to be coming up against fairies, so that's why I have 2 counters for fairy types in the back. I have my Magnezone, which is a very hard check on pretty much every fairy type. And then we have our poison type. I have the shiny Kanto Muck here, and I have already done a video on shiny Kanto Muck. I love this Pokemon so much. It is super bulky. It just took a Scald like nobody's business, right? It's spamming out these Thunder Punches. It has such a diverse moveset. Really great Pokemon here. So the Poliwrath is going to be able to take us out with a Scald, but I still have the Magnezone, and they are completely energy dry, so I'm able to just farm down with Sparks. And then we have the Venusaur to deal with. Now, I'm not out of the woods yet here because Magnezone is fairly glassy. So a Frenzy Plant from Venusaur, which hits really, really hard, probably still would have KO'd from that range. So it was really important that we get to double Mirror Shots. I went for double Mirror Shot because it was going to be more energy efficient than trying to do a Wild Charge, which would not have KO'd, and then adding a Mirror Shot. So it doesn't matter if you get close to KOing if you can't get to the second move. So, able to pull out that first game, and now we are on to game number 2, where I will focus more on the commentary and less on how I built up this Pokemon. I saw a lot of Swampert leads. In this case, I was anticipating that they might switch out because Kommo-O can do pretty well against Swampert. As a dragon type, it resists the general elemental attacks like water attacks. So I continued farming, right? I held on to that energy and didn't throw the move, anticipating that they would swap, and they did. And then my opponent did a really weird thing here, weird in my opinion. They brought in Talonflame. Now they were probably thinking that they're going to be doing super effective damage with their fast moves, and that's true. But Swampert would have only taken resisted damage from anything that the Magnezone could throw at it, and Swampert will be doing neutral or super effective damage on everything. But meanwhile, one Wild Charge is going to completely annihilate a Talonflame. So that was lucky for me that my opponent decided to bring the Talonflame in there. And now I'm just going to come in with the Muck to do whatever chip damage I can here. This is not a great matchup for Muck, but it doesn't really matter because Kommo-O is my win con. So again, I'm just chipping away at the Swampert. I was about to throw that Thunder Punch to see if maybe I could get that last shield, but again, it doesn't really matter because Kommo-O is going to resist the Hydro Cannons. All I have to worry about is a potential Earthquake here. The Dragon Tails, the fast move, are going to be enough to take out the Swampert, so I don't have to go for the Nuke move, especially because Close Combat debuffs the user. So I am just going to spam out these Dragon Claws to try and get shields, and we don't even need to get to a second one. I can just farm down with the Dragon Tails. So Kommo-O more or less takes the mid game by throwing the Close Combat at that Walrein, very nearly one-shotting it, and then closes the end game against Swampert, so that was very nice. And I have been working on hanging on to energy instead of throwing it immediately, so that game was one spot where I was able to do it, and it worked out. Okay, in this case, we came up against a Walrein on the lead, and my entire team has some play against Walrein, but Kommo-O definitely wants energy advantage there, so I swapped out. And my opponent has an Excadrill, and that is kind of a core breaker for this team. I desperately need this to land, which it does, but it's non-stab. It doesn't do quite as much damage as I thought it would, and my opponent farms me down, which gives them a lot of energy, which is really, really not good. They're going to have multiple moves, so I just have to tank the first one onto Kommo-O. And of course, I came in with Kommo-O because the Excadrill will absolutely destroy, with fast moves and charge moves, absolutely destroy the Magnezone. So I went down on shields, which is very not good. I am going to get this close combat through. I was just crossing my fingers that I would be able to get that shield. Fortunately, I did. And I, didn't know whether my opponent knew the counts for Kommo-O. Seems they did not, or they weren't keeping count, one or the other. And I was able to take them out there. My opponent built up enough energy to potentially have an Earthquake, so I definitely had to shield that. And now it seems like with just a couple more Powdered Snows, they were able to get to the Earthquake. Retrospectively, I should have just let that go because my win con was that they would do a bait. So they did bait me, and it paid off for them this time. So good game to my opponent. Alright, moving into the next match, we have Kommo-O versus Talonflame. So I wasn't exactly sure about how this would go, but I decided to stay in here because without energy advantage, my other Pokemon struggle against Talonflame. Magnezone does really well if it's ahead on energy or if shields are down, but without those elements, it's really, really difficult. Fortunately, Kommo-O resists the Fire-type moves, so Incinerates are not going to chunk nearly as much on Kommo-O as they would on other Pokemon, and I'm actually able to get shields and farm down there, so that's very nice. And my opponent comes in with another Venusaur. I suspected that my opponent did not want to see Kommo-O in the back, which is why I swapped out, because they stayed in what was clearly going to be a losing matchup up front. They ended up giving up all of their shields, and so I suspected that their second Pokemon was going to be the only hard check against Kommo-O. And it looks like I was right. We have a Steel type in the back, which definitely doesn't want to see Kommo-O and its fighting type moves. So I am actually able to win that matchup with Muck, and then my opponent concedes the match. So fair enough. That is a difficult spot to be in because, of course, I had two Pokemon left, one of them being the Kommo-O, which was going to do neutral damage against the Muck, and then they didn't know what my back Pokemon was, but Magnezone would have been able to do fine there, as we saw in previous matchups. Hopping into this next match, we have Kommo-O versus another Swampert. Y'all saw last time that this is generally a favorable matchup for the Kommo-O. My opponent did not build up to a potential Earthquake, so I'm just going to let that Hydro Cannon through. They're going for quick guaranteed damage, which makes me think that their strategy is either to just spam off enough moves to try and wear down the Kommo-O and take shield advantage, or they don't have an answer to Kommo-O, as in the last game, and they're just doing whatever damage they can. So I am able to save both shields and farm down there. And my opponent brings in a Wall Rain. I saw the typing up at the top and was able to throw that close combat. Also, I misspoke before. My opponent went down one shield, so they gave us shield advantage, and that was the important thing that I wanted there. Okay, so Kommo-O goes down. We are able to bring in the Magnezone, and my opponent had enough energy for a potential Earthquake. They did not bait. They threw the Earthquake, which is absolutely fantastic for me because that means that it's A, a little bit easier to keep up with their fast move counts, and B, it means that it was a good shield. I didn't waste it, and I could use the other shield for better purposes. My opponent stayed in that really tough matchup, so I suspected that maybe they were going to have problems with electric types in the back. Looks like they did, and we've seen this matchup before in the last game. Now I have my Kanto Muck aligned with the Empoleon, and it's going to be close, but Kanto Muck can definitely take on the Empoleon. In case they built up to a Blizzard, I went ahead and shielded here because they had enough energy for 2 Hydro Cannons, and I have been against people who run Blizzard on Empoleon. So I was just going to shield that first one to be safe, and then we can safely farm up to the next Thunder Punch, and that's going to close out the game. So really fun battles against opponents with really neat teams. I appreciate everybody who participated in playing. And as a little bonus for folks, I have also included footage from the Great League this past week. No, that's not right. A Pokemon I've mostly been using in Great League, but just developed for the Ultra League. And that Pokemon is Staraptor. So we recently had the Staraptor Community Day. I built one for Great League and one for Ultra League. I know that people have been divided on its playability in Ultra League. Some people really like it, and some people are having difficulty with it. I mostly, I think I had mostly 3-2 sets when I was using it. I had difficulty getting a full set of 4, as I like to do for these videos. So that's why it's not a whole video dedicated to it. But in case you were curious about the playability of Staraptor with Gust, I'm using it here, and it has access to a very similar moveset as Pidgeot, so this potentially replaces XL Pidgeot for people who can't or don't want to invest that kind of resource material into an XL Pidgeot. Unfortunately, it is considerably squishier, so it's does not want to tank a charge move. Definitely does not want to tank a charge move. That's the challenging part about Staraptor. But when it's up shields, it can do a lot of damage. You saw how much those gusts were doing against Machamp. And so now we are in this end game. I have my Palkia ready here. I really like Palkia in the Ultra League. I know that a lot of folks use it in the Master League, but the Dragon Tail with Aqua Tail combo is just really great in my opinion. So my opponent has an XL Golduck. That's pretty cool. Don't see that very often. And they did reach another Ice Beam before I was able to farm down, so that would have definitely taken us out. I certainly needed to shield it. But hanging on to energy here was really important because now I have 2 close combats built up. This was very close. Just a couple of fast moves would have taken out the Staraptor here, but we were able to get to that second close combat and close the game against the Machamp. So Staraptor's all right. Not the best or most fun thing that I've played with in the Ultra League, but it's also not terrible. It definitely has some playability. I hope you enjoyed seeing the Kommo-O showcase and perhaps that bonus battle with the Staraptor as well. Hope that everyone had a fun Starly Community Day, and we'll have the Galarian Zigzagoon Community Day coming up soon, so I'm sure that I will have more footage for you regarding that Pokemon's evolution, Obstagoon, as soon as it's available. If you enjoyed the content, please go ahead and leave a like, and I hope to see you around for other videos in the future. Until next time, trainers.